Smart Management Framework for Netezza is all about automating the administrative tasks that bog down your Netezza DBAs. Tasks like backup and replication, Active Directory synchronization, performance tuning, security, and routine housekeeping. In my previous video, I went through SMF's main DR features. In this video, I'll be showing you some additional DR functionality that will significantly improve your DBA's productivity. We'll also be looking at SMF's backup and restore features, and I'll introduce its Active Directory synchronization feature. When it comes to DR, your organization may have opted not to install IBM's Netezza replication services because of the high costs associated with it. If that is the case, one of the main challenges you are most likely to be facing is the logistic nightmare of backing up and recovering data owing to the sheer volume of data you process. Testing of a partial failure of your system may be difficult, not to mention your limited ability to experiment with load balancing or doing tweaks without it becoming a major planning exercise. SMF provides you with the ability to circumvent a drawn-out backup recovery process by making it easy to have multiple master-slave configurations with automated synchronization. I showed you before how easy it is to create a master on one Netezza machine and to replicate it to several Netezza machines, and how changes made to the master on one machine are quickly replicated to all the others. Next, I will show you how you can improve your productivity further by creating and running multiple DR sets from a single menu. One of the more tedious tasks the DBA will perform is setting up DR for multiple databases. SMF automates this process, allowing you to use an existing set as a template for multiple databases, thus eliminating many hours of repetitive keying. So let's do that now. In this example, I have a number of databases that I want to replicate across the 4 slave machines in exactly the same way that I did for the AdventureWorks database. So I will select menu item 4, Create Set, and then item 2, Create multiple full DR sets, and then I'll choose MPS 1. Here I am given the option to use the existing set ID 1, or if I had not already set up a set to use as a template, I could do that here using menu item 1. Having chosen to use the existing AdventureWorks set, I can then add any number of additional databases, one after the other, to the job. As you can see, we only have 4 databases to choose from here, but this list could easily be 50 or even more databases, so you can see how the benefits of using this batch process can accumulate. This process will set up the master and slave databases and prepare all the data storage for each master-slave combination. So for multiple databases will run for a considerable time. Let's fast forward the process so that on completion you'll see how we have DR set up for 4 more databases, the same as the original AdventureWorks set. All that remains to do now is to run the sets to synchronize the data across all 4 slaves, and this we do individually. As you know, Netezza does a very good job of backing up your data and supports a range of tape and storage management systems such as Tivoli, Symantec Veritas and EMC Networker, as well as storage block devices directly connected. Whether or not you're using one of these high-tech storage and retrieval systems, however, creating backup policies, running the backups and restoring data on demand is a complex business that's easy to get wrong. SMF drastically reduces the time it takes for the Netezza DBA to create an automatic set of backups that can be fully audited and reported on. It does not leave a footprint on the Netezza system, so will not require configuration changes on the NZ appliance. As you'll see shortly, it's very easy to configure via the UI menu, and it works with a lot of different storage options. So this is the backup and restore menu. Displayed at the top of the screen is a list of existing backup sets, so at this stage there are two. We'll create a backup set using menu option 4, and we'll back up the AdventureWorks database on MPS 1. SMF supports all the storage management systems that are supported by Netezza. On our system we have Tivoli set up with a choice of two connectors which would have previously been set up by the DBA with Tivoli login credentials and options to be passed to Tivoli. Next we set the retention period, which for this backup we will set to 100 days, and the backup type. I'm selecting D for differential. Finally, a very important option is to enable view checking. A recent Netezza update changed its behavior so that backups can fail if any views are corrupted. SMF has the option to check and correct or drop the views during backups. In each of these cases, DDL is generated of the views before and after being changed or dropped and are written to the SMF database. This is not automatically set because this process scans the catalogue and consumes resources. So if, for example, you have full weekly backups and daily differential backups, you may want to limit this view checking activity just to weekends, in which case you would select No for full and Yes for incremental. For customers not using Tivoli, Networker or Veritas, the alternative is to create a backup to write to blocked devices. Let's do one of these now. The same choices are given to select the NFS number and the database to back up, then the available storage is displayed, in this case 2 mount points, so let's choose both. Then there is an option to select a custom subdirectory other than the default, which you may want to vary, and the retention period, backup type and view checking options, just like we did before with the Tivoli backup. Now let's run the backups. This can be done individually or all at once. The duration of this process will depend on the number of backups and the amount of data you're backing up. On completion, some useful statistics are provided, such as size and composition of the backup, the duration of the backup overall, and table by table, all written to the SMF database for reporting. Once set up, these backup sets can be added to the scheduler and so drastically reduce the amount of time that needs to be allocated to the overall backing up process. Whilst the backup is running, I'll take this opportunity to tell you about two additional options, which are toggled on or off by the DBA in the settings menu. The first is the ability to remount the storage after the backup in read-only mode. This will protect the backup from being accidentally overwritten, which you may find useful as an extra security measure. The second is to enable archiving from blocked devices, allowing customers with backup systems that are not supported by Netezza to mark their backups for archiving to a separate storage system. So having created your backups, restoring data right down to table level is very straightforward. To perform a restore operation, select menu option 5 and the screen will list which Netezza devices have backups, in this case MPS 1 and MPS 5. Let's go for MPS 1. Then we see a display of the list of databases that have backup sets. So I'm choosing AdventureWorks, backup set 1. And then you'll see a list of the backup sequences. So in this case I'm choosing sequence number 3. Where there is a timestamp in the max column, it refers to the latest incremental backup taken, otherwise the backup is a full backup. The next choice you'll make is whether to restore the whole database or to choose which tables to restore, and if you would like to restore to a different database name so that you're not overwriting the existing data set. So I want to restore a single table from the sales schema, which contains only a test table. So that's the one I'm going to select, and I'm going to say no to having the list emailed. Restoring an entire database is even more straightforward. We'll restore AdventureWorks database, and rather than overwrite it, I'll restore it to a new name, AdventureWorks 3. If you are unsure of which database or even which tape to restore, a very useful feature of SMF is the ability to interrogate the logs which are saved in normalized form to the SMF database, along with the tape number. This feature can save hours, even days, in trying to locate the data that needs to be restored. I'd now like to give you a glimpse of SMF's Active Directory synchronization functionality. When it comes to managing access privileges, Netezza has a major shortcoming. It does not support Active Directory, it only supports LDAP. What this means is that all the settings in what is the most commonly used authentication infrastructure, Active Directory, so domains, organizational users, groups and users, and their access privileges, must be entered manually into the LDAP server that is queried by Netezza. Where Active Directory is used, the LDAP server can only query it to verify that the user has entered the correct login credentials and then take over the authentication from there. For a large organization with many trees in its Active Directory forest, as depicted in this diagram, keeping up to date with constant user changes is a big administrative overhead, and it's pretty commonplace for security and verification to be completely out of whack with Active Directory. This issue makes it difficult to maintain strict control over user access. For ease of administration, some users will be set up as so-called binge users and gain across-the-board access to databases and tables, and they may in turn selectively share their login credentials with other team members. This flies in the face of good business practice and increases the risk of users having access to sensitive or confidential data that they shouldn't. Conversely, a number of users who should have access to your Netezza data find themselves constantly frustrated by not having the correct access permissions. And furthermore, a system audit will expose the lack of compliance to your company's security policies, resulting in costly remedial work by your DBAs. Happily, SMF has a solution for this. Using a series of templates, SMF allows a DBA to replicate the Active Directory into the LDAP architecture. The result is that the LDAP server, when queried by Netezza, will return the same authentication information as that held in Active Directory. These templates only have to be set up once to replicate the organization's Active Directory configuration and run then regularly to synchronize the data. In a future video, I'll be explaining in more detail how the templates actually work. And that brings me to the end of this one. Thank you for joining me.